Sorry. Yeah, it's supposed to be. It must be running late.
No, it showed me rubbing my eyes and I wasn't rubbing my eyes.
I'm sure.
Probably it's just.
It has a little delay.
I gotta stop rubbing my eyes.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the KIPDA Regional Planning Council meeting for April 8th, 2025. Good to see everybody here. Appreciate everybody. The first item will be the roll call. So, Rachel?
Honorable Jerry Summers. Mr. Charlie Spalding. Mr. Keith Griffey. Honorable Scott Bates.
Here.
Honorable Jason Stanley. Mr. Mike Ray. Mr. Brian Davis.
Here.
Mr. Tony Parrott. Mr. Mike King. Honorable David Vogel. Mr. Ryan Fisher. Ms. Anna Barge.
Here.
Honorable Dan Ison. Mr. Ryan Libkey.
Here.
Mr. Lawrence Blackaby. Honorable Scott Travis. Ms. Julie Sweezy. Honorable John Ogburn. And Honorable Joe Robinson. You have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. We have a quorum. We have 4 of the counties represented today: Oldham, Louisville Metro, Shelby County, and Henry County. Our next item of business is the minutes from the January 14th, 2025 meeting. You should have received those in your packet. We'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Judge Bates. I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The minutes are approved. All right, next item of business is going to be our guest speaker, Ms. Juba Barber, with the Executive Vice President of the Building Industry Association of Louisville.
Thank you.
Very good.
So
Welcome. Thank you.
I don't know where you all want me to stand. That is.
Wherever.
Wherever you
Okay,
feel
well, I hate to be right behind you all, but I also have to look at my own presentation or I'll get right off the rails.
There you go.
So good morning. Thank you all for the invitation. I wanted to, this is for my own self, to tell you what topics we're gonna be covering, because everybody in the world is talking about housing and nobody is literally saying any of the same things. So I just tried to pick 3 things that you all might care about. But first of all, who are we? So the Building Industry Association of Greater Louisville, we were formed back in 1947. Some of you may have known us as the Home Builders Association of Louisville. We cover 7 counties, all of which are yours. So we're Jefferson, Oldham, Shelby, Spencer, Henry, Trimble, and Bullitt. And we have members who are active in all of those counties. Sometimes it's a commercial developer. Sometimes it is a single family home builder. Sometimes there are all kinds of activities in your county, whether you're like Bullitt County and you've got tract builders there, custom builders there, a lot of remodeling there, and a lot of industrial commercial development there. Oftentimes those people are our members. And we try to engage with the appropriate people in your community about development, land development issues primarily. Especially just like they're getting ready to do in Bullitt County, they're getting ready to redo all of their subdivision regulations. And we, as you all know, in Shelby County, Ryan, have issues and comments and feelings on things that proposed changes that you all may be making. We, as an association, are not project specific. We think that all of them have merit. And if they meet your rules and requirements, you know, we think they're good. My people aren't in the business of building things that people either aren't going to live in or aren't going to use. We need to go places to be where the people need the stuff, right? Because we're typically for profit. So we like to work with these counties to figure out where you are, what your needs are, and then try to deliver that to the public that you all have. We're a lot of people. We're the window companies, the rug people, the remodelers, everybody. So we have about 1,300 member firms. We're still in the top 10 for home builders associations in the country for size, because primarily, even still, We are still primarily small local business companies. So just for your alls, because you would understand this and you would know, we do have I'll call them tract builders, production builders in the area. National companies like Pulte, we have DR Horton, we have Elite Homes, in Bullitt County, you may have Century, I don't know if Century, who is from Bullitt County? Nobody in Bullitt County, well, I'm talking Bullitt County, I'm not even here. But we do have some regional ball homes, regional and national builders here. You'll see a change in your marketplace when they come into your market because they develop a little bit differently than your hometown guys that you're used to, but they are here and they are providing primarily, they're meeting the housing needs for a lot of your first-time home buyers, primarily in some instances. So they're coming. If you don't have them yet, they're probably already looking at property in your areas, just so you know. The number one trend there is, and I'll go back to this, I was just at something last night. The number one trend is housing, is everybody's saying we don't have enough. And literally everywhere I go, everybody is talking about housing. They can't talk enough about housing. They want to figure out what the problem is and how do we solve this problem. And my answer is always, you just have to build more housing. Because when you don't have enough, it's not really like a complicated math problem. It's just that there is not enough housing. And if you want to know, if you need backup when you're talking about that, there is no shortage of reports on, is there enough housing? I just put 3 up here because I think you all are probably familiar with all of these organizations and the studies they have done. KHC, if you have not gone to their gap analysis tool, they will tell you by the county what your housing shortage is, what the price points are. You know, is it on the low end of housing, or do you need housing overall? That is a great tool. If you ever need to send somebody, whether they're calling you from the media or from wherever, that is a great tool for people to use. KHC number is widely quoted. It was quoted to me last night. We as a state are short about 206,000 housing units. That is all types. So that's from the people who fall into the affordable housing category all the way up to the people who are buying their $2 million dream home. HBAK, which is the Home Builders Association of Kentucky, they partnered with the state chamber. They also did a statewide analysis. It backs up the same information that they have from KHC, which is we don't have enough housing. And again, this is the number one trend in the housing conversation, is everybody saying we don't have enough housing. It really is true. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. And then if you are in Jefferson County, Brian knows about this. We have a housing needs assessment. This number is quoted all of the time. The housing needs assessment is a study that is done by our Louisville Metro Housing Authority, which typically focuses on people who fall into the affordability area where they would use a voucher, those kinds of programs. We are short just in this county about 30, I'll say this number, it could be 50,000, nobody believes it, but we are short about 50,000 affordable units. And those are typically people who would qualify for a voucher or another housing assistance program. That is important, especially for you all, because there is nothing more controversial than a housing development other than an affordable housing development. So that's just information for you all to have. Again, if you need a place to go find these numbers, it's right there. I tried to link it, but I'm 50. I don't know how to link these PowerPoints anymore. Again, I have to go back to this point because I find my own self arguing it. We are a developers organization. My guys build everything. So when we talk about a housing shortage, I want my members to have access to every opportunity they have, right? Because so many of my members don't just build one thing. So I think we don't have enough housing across the board. And I truly believe that, and I'm, again, going to back that up here. But as elected officials across the state right now, the number one conversation is affordable housing. It is so popular that the term is now toxic. If the public wants to kill a development, or if they want to rile any elected officials up, all they have to say is that's an affordable housing development. And the implication is those are the Section 8 housing or voucher housing or some other program, that's funded by the government housing. And, people, especially if you're a homeowner, you may not necessarily want that to be what's built next to you. So I just bring that up because I'm sure you've heard it. If you haven't heard it, I'll send those people your way and you can talk to them and I don't have to talk to them anymore. From our perspective, again, we build everything. We build apartments, we build starter homes, we build dream homes. But I have been in housing since 1997, roughly, in one way or the other, in development. When it comes to housing, you all know this, housing is a ladder, right? None of us, maybe you all are, if you were, you probably wouldn't be in here with me. You're not really lucky enough to start out at the top tier of where you're gonna be on the housing ladder, right? We all come in somewhere. I started in an apartment that probably doesn't even exist anymore in Lexington because it didn't have, central heat and air, and it was pretty awful, right? Housing, you start in one place and you move up, and sometimes you move down, sometimes you move around based on whatever your needs are. So my guys build it all, but one of the most important buyers in the market is that first-time home buyer. And typically right now, they're using the term workforce housing, those kinds of people. But that first-time home buyer is the person who's the catalyst, right? They leave the apartment, so that opens that spot up for somebody else, and they move into their house. If they don't buy a new home, they're opening that house up so that person can jump up to the next rung in the ladder when it comes to housing. So what we know, my builders would tell you this, and it's challenging for a million reasons, but what we know in our markets, all of your counties, is there's not enough housing for those people. There's not enough opportunity for those people to come in, buy that first house because of a million different things, and I can get into those. Right now, that's where we see, as the people who build the stuff, that's where we truly do see a shortage. And it's a challenge not just created by government, it's a challenge, from a million different things. And I do want to remind you all, typically, the majority of my members are private developers. They are not funded by the government. I have a few guys that do tax credit developments, but the majority of our members are private developers. And so they're interested in putting stuff on the market that the public can purchase and move that way. So it's not going to be the same thing as typically the affordable housing developer, the nonprofit builders, those kinds of things that you see. But that is a huge trend and huge conversation. Ryan, I think I broke it.
Oh,
What button I don't know what it is. I can keep talking without it, but instead I need something to help me not get off the rails. Like totally I broke it.
I got a question for you.
Fire away.
Oh, what about, what do you consider, affordable housing as far as a price line?
So this is the worst question ever, right? Because I can't really answer that. So I would say it's whatever you can qualify for, right? If you have a job and you can qualify for that mortgage. Your challenge is if you look at me and you say, I want a $250,000 house, that's what I want in my county. I'm gonna have to look at you and say, well, there's probably a product that we have that's $250,000, but it's not gonna look like the product that was built in 1960. Right? It's probably gonna be a D.R. Horton home, which is an entry-level home, might be a townhome, might be a condo, which again, those townhomes and condos can be controversial to development. People don't necessarily love a bunch of single-family houses having new townhomes and condos, which is a shame because again, that's a number one way right now that people are entering the market through home ownership, are condos and townhomes. So the price point, it's not gonna be the same anywhere because the most expensive thing we buy is the first thing we buy, and that's the piece of property. So that greatly changes what we can do in any community. I want to talk a little bit about, I've said this a million times to the Courier Journal and nobody seems to understand it. We are literally, truly underbuilt. These are not made up numbers. These are not things that I just think occurred. These are literally things that happened. And again, I am 50, so I remember what happened in 2008, so I can explain it. But you have to remember, there are a lot of buyers on the market now that were in third grade when we had the housing recession. So to them, their normal is not what I was used to in the housing market pre-2008, nor is the majority of the public's. And that is a challenge that we face as the developers, and you all, as you're sitting in planning commission meetings, you face as well. So Brian, we get these numbers from the county. We count permits actually in our office. So way back in 2005, and I chose 2005 because that's as far as our records go. We were pulling single-family permits in Jefferson County, about 2,500 single-family permits. That's new houses. And another 720 condos and patio homes. I'm gonna tell you a change in the condo and patio home market that will make that number, the lower numbers make a little more sense too. 2008 happens. 2009 happens. Things are slow. Like way slow, like fewer than 1,000 permits per year slow, sometimes 600. We inch back out. We get to 2015, we're only at 900 permits. We stay around that number for many years. Finally, in 2024, we hit a higher number in Jefferson County during COVID. Actually, we peaked up, we were at 1,600, I think. 2024, which is the last full year that we have, we were 1,100 permits. Prior to 2008, our level effectively was double every year what it is now in single family starts. So we are underbuilt, which, hey, that's the number one challenge. And I have your other counties in here too. Perspective wise, that created a worse challenge because everybody who lives here that's going to your planning commission meetings, they're like, there's so much growth. There's so much development. It's all happening too fast. It's terrible. We hate all of it. It's because they have not paid attention to what we did pre-2008. They're used to seeing the pace that we have been since the recession, which is just not enough, right? So they're coming and they're screaming because we've just not been building that much. This one is a little harder to read, but I pulled what we get for Oldham, Bullitt, Shelby, and Spencer. So, I mean, we were high everywhere, right? Oldham County, we were at 506. Bullitt, we were at 600. Alicia, you would have been there then, right? When were you there? No, you were here, probably here then. Shelby County, we were 355, and Spencer County, we were 356. Spencer County, right? Who's from Spencer County?
Not here.
I got all this good stuff. We are always lower typically in those counties with condos and patio homes. Typically, I assume because it's a rural area and those people, that's just not the, you know, the type of development they're used to seeing. But again, after the recession, we dropped. And again, we're about half. So everybody's underbuilt. And everybody has been underbuilt for a long time. It's 2025. So we just never really kept up. And the public is used to seeing us at a slower pace. So if you try to do anything to ramp anything up, it scares them, freaks them out. And it gives you, not only do you have the I don't have enough housing for people problem, you've got all the public is used to seeing is like, you know, 200 houses a year in an entire county is not a lot. You know, that's just not enough places for people to go. And you can't be going, we got jobs, we got all this great stuff over here. We have everything everybody would want, except you can't afford to live here. So good luck. So that is not a trend. Those are just facts. Those are things that I want everybody in this community to know is we are truly underbuilt and have been for quite some time, and we're never going to catch up. This is not Brian's fault. He said he was afraid I was going to talk about him. It takes us in this county, in Jefferson County. It is a complaint. I'm sorry.
No, it is.
It takes us from the time we lay eyes on a piece of dirt, the contract on that piece of dirt, it can take us 18 to 24 months to actually get entitled before we ever move dirt. So even if Brian lets us build, they approve everything under the sun over there. It's a long time before we ever start, you know, at 1,000 permits a year, catching up with where we've been. So, you know, it's going to take us a while to dig ourselves out if we are ever able to. We may be so far behind that we see what I see happening, which is people going to Indiana. And I know your constituents who hate anything new, and I'm just going to say that because I would say that to them if they were here. They don't want anything new. They don't want any kind of change. They're probably like, we don't care. Let them go to Southern Indiana. And that all sounds great until people say, all of your retailers say, we don't have enough rooftops over here to maintain this business. So we're going to go to Southern Indiana. So there's that tax base you lost in addition to your residential real property tax base. And then your companies, your corporations start looking at the area and they're like, yes, the greater Louisville area MSA sounds great. Where is the workforce living that we can pay for? Where is the, you know, retail? Where's the schools? Where's everything that people might want to go? Where's the infrastructure? And when it's all across the river, not only does your county lose, but the entire state of Kentucky loses. So we've got to do more to look at economic development holistically. That's a trend I would like to see. Look at economic development holistically and what do we need to change, whether it's our county or our region, to attract all of it, right? We're not gonna fix the schools in here, but if you have enough property taxes in your area, you got more money for your schools. If you have enough students, you're gonna build a new school. Who's Oldham County? Oh.
She's on.
Okay. You know, if we need to be ready to do that and look at it in a holistic way. So we're prepared for it and we're not sending it across the river to somebody else. Because if DR Horton is not looking in your area, I can guarantee you, they're already looking in southern Indiana. So it's just the market. We don't have fences around our state or our counties anymore. Everybody wants to know, where is everybody going and why are they going? This is a national trend. This is not just Jefferson County. So this is not blamable. This county is declining, Jefferson County. We have seen that. That's a census information that was published in the paper. It was much talked about. We are not growing in this county, but we are very typical nationally in that our ex-urban counties are growing. So you're seeing that. I can't remember where you were from. KIPDA, you're seeing it anyway. But if you are,
County and
okay, I'm looking at you.
Jefferson.
So you all are seeing that. They're coming to you and it's creating, I know in Shelby County,
I mean,
it's not you, I'm just saying, but it creates a challenge with your population, right? I know that I have members who have gone to some of these counties and they got people who they know want to go there, but the people who live there right now aren't so excited about them coming. So I know that it's difficult for those people who are currently there to get past, but people go out. This is not a new trend. We have seen this historically when it comes to housing. If people want to go out to get a little more space to find something and affordable for you is a thing right now. It always is a thing, right? You can't afford it, you can't buy it. But the further out you go, the more likely you are to be able to find something that you can buy. So we are seeing that right now, and you're seeing that in large part because it does cost a lot to develop in Jefferson County, and it costs a lot to buy a house in Jefferson County. But quite frankly, it's comparable from Jefferson County to Shelby County and to Bullitt County. Keep looking at Felicia, but she's not there now. Again, this is a national trend. You all are seeing it. Jefferson County sees it on all of their major connector roads. And everybody who lives in Jefferson County is very mad about that. So, the number one complaint we get when it comes to new developments anywhere is traffic. And if you are in Jefferson County and you're trying to bring a new development into Jefferson County off of Bardstown Road, let's use that favorite example, Brian, they will deny a new development on Bardstown Road in Jefferson County because of the traffic, even though 60,000 cars a day, I can't remember the number, that's a KIPDA number, you all would know that, come from outside Jefferson County. So, and truly, again, with everybody moving out, those numbers will only increase. So, it creates a problem in the county where the jobs are, and then it creates a problem for the people driving in every day. And that money has to, we have to fix those problems. That money's got to come from the state, and those traffic problems have to get fixed. So housing types and trends, I cannot count the number of meetings I have been in, whether it's local elected officials, state elected officials, the general public. Everybody hates apartments. Raise your hand if you like apartments. See, you all, there we go. So, the challenge is right now, and maybe forever, right? I did read a study one time that said by 2030, the national average price of a single family home would be $850,000. I believe it. So, again, that's a national average. So you've got the coast to factor in, but everything is up. So, and the only way we have to control prices truly is what we actually put on the piece of property that we buy. So it is a trend both in what we can do, but it's a trend that we are seeing in the public, right? Because if you can't afford it, you can't buy it. So higher density, if you want single family, communities have to get over their distaste for high-density, single-family. Metro council members, state elected officials, everybody is on a big single-family home ownership kick right now. They hate apartments. And then when I say, well, if you give us higher densities, we could probably make some stuff work. But they don't like higher densities either. We have to let it go. If we're gonna have places for people to live, we are going to have to allow for smaller lot sizes. Whether you're going from 5 acres to 3, or you're going from 1 acre to a half acre, whatever it is. And I know I have one judge that talks about the character of the community, which means I want you to have an acre lot. That is not, for the general buying public right now, that is not an option. The majority of buyers in the market today cannot afford a $750,000 starter home. And the bigger the piece of ground that they're buying, the more likely it is it's gonna cost them that much, quite frankly. So we have to be able to provide housing on smaller lots. Millennials are willing to pay for smaller houses if they have nice stuff. And the only way we can offset the nice stuff in the house is, again, to have that smaller lot. Millennials actually I thought this was funny. Millennials actually prefer the 2,300 square foot, which is about like an average, but right now we are building those 2,100 square foot homes. That is about a national average for us. If millennials will buy them if we put the nicer stuff in there, they'll let go of the den, right? And have the regular living room, the more open space, if they've got nicer stuff. And by nicer stuff, I'm talking about the trends that we see on HGTV, right? The hardwood floor and the quartz countertop. When we are doing, and that people are like, why do we need more apartments when we have so many apartments? And I try to put this, how many of you are parents? So I have a daughter, and maybe I'm a helicopter. I know there's a parenting phrase for everything. I don't believe I would let my daughter live in the first apartment that I lived in, right? I mean, if I look back on it, I can't believe my parents let me do it. But if you're in Jefferson County, our apartment stock is old. We built apartments in the 70s and 80s, which, by the way, what else did I read? We are the same, we're like 30 years, 1980 is like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's a long time ago, especially when you're talking about housing stock, especially when you're talking about apartments. So if you think we're gonna affordably rehab apartments built in the 70s and 80s, maybe even the early 90s, that makes that project, unaffordable. It'd be cheaper to knock it down. We just talked about this, than it would be to, rehab it. So, the market itself does not want to move into the 1970s apartment. The market itself, especially if you're a younger person starting out and you're trying to live your life and live a little bit, right, on your own, you're going to want to move into somewhere where it's nice, it's safe. If you're a single woman, you're going to want to be able to get out of your car and feel like you can safely get into your condo. You're going to want it to have amenities. You're going to want it to have a pool. You're going to want it to have a workout area. Those are the places that we are seeing people want to go. And again, those are the places that people hate to have built by them. But you'd rather live by a nice new apartment complex that, by the way, in Jefferson County, they are typically 90% occupied before they are completed. So that's legitimately the need that we actually have. So, we can't force everybody into the old stuff that we don't even want to live in ourselves, right? So that is a trend and where we see people going. So if somebody comes to your county and they want to build some garden style apartments and they're new and they're nice and they're places where your teacher who's starting out might live, try to consider it because it would be a good option for your community. Better than people trying to rehab old ones and not going through all they have. The other trend, and I have to talk about this, there's so many impacts on our market, so many known knowns and known unknowns, that I have no idea where this market will be. I have no idea what an affordable to a first time home buyer house will be, right? We have seen since COVID, if you had told me that lumber would ever escalate like it did, I would have never believed it. But since COVID, I do know that you can start a street on a subdivision and one material can go at one level price that you paid for years and can skyrocket. Lumber went up $60,000 a day. So You know, it is crazy, the market right now. We all know this, I don't have to say this. We're in a little bit of an uncertainty bubble. And I think we all hope it kind of flattens out the right way soon. But that stuff doesn't change everything that we already have, the known. The number one issue affecting development in all of your communities is land availability and cost. If I can't afford, as a single family developer, to buy a property and make the project pencil, I'm out. You might find an apartment builder who can get the density to come in and buy that piece of property. But he's got to get it approved. And that's going to be hard. And it's got to be in the right place, right? If you're outside of Jefferson County and even some parts of Jefferson County, you don't have sewer service. You're not going to put apartments there. So land availability, you know, we have a looming lot shortage. No matter what happens, we have a lot shortage in this community, this whole area that I'm talking about. Again, construction costs are crazy. We are not in control of it. I know everybody thinks the developer should just eat that, but that's not gonna happen. You know, they'll go bankrupt if they eat all those changes in prices. Labor is an issue. That was the trend last year. Everybody talked about workforce. We still talk about it. If you come to one of my events, 70% of my people are over 50. And they're gonna retire. And you're not gonna have a plumber or an HVAC person or a concrete finisher or a bricklayer, and maybe not a framer. So people have not entered the trades, and they are not entering the trades at the rate that they are leaving. That is going to, more than anything else potentially, increase the price of a house or anything that you move into. And regulations are ever changing. Bullitt County's gonna change their subdivision regulations. Jefferson County's gonna change the entire land development code. I don't know if somebody else is doing something. I hope you'll tell me so we can start talking about it, because what we are able to do on that piece of property that we buy has more of an impact on what we put on it than just about anything else. Because if we can't make it work, it doesn't happen. We have to walk away from it. Interest rates. One reason you are not seeing people buy stuff is because a 6.5%, 7% interest rate, which now I think we've dropped a little bit. It's prohibitive. You know, if you're looking at a $300,000 house with a 7% interest rate, probably pre-COVID, you could have bought a bigger house at that same payment, right? You could have bought a house that was twice as much for that same payment. The interest, what you pay is real. There's two things that determine what you buy if you buy anything, right? Location and can I pay for it? And oftentimes, people are like, no, that's not true. Oftentimes, can I pay for it outweighs location. So that's just a fact. Buyer and seller confidence. We will see this more if you listen to the news, you'll think that the world is ending tomorrow. I try to tell people don't do that, because the world will keep turning one way or the other. But if people lose their confidence in what's going on in the market, people will stop buying and people will stop listing, and we will all slow down, which is not good for our overall problem of there's not enough housing. And then my number one thing, NIMBYism is going to kill all of us if all that other stuff doesn't. If the people who don't want anything new in their backyard win all the time, we will never have anything new and nice improvements in our area. You know, Jefferson County has about 1 million people in it. And on average, it takes 200 people to have a night hearing, right, Brian?
Right.
So that night hearing can be one of the most contentious, it's like a bar brawl half the time. But that's 200 people who are having a negative impact on the livelihood of the other 700,000 people that live here, right? There has got to be a way for us to get past the NIMBYism. I can't talk too much about Shelby, but you know, there are some vocal voices in a community that will stop anything new that's not what they like from happening. And if we're gonna progress, we're gonna have to figure out how we get past that. Because for development of any kind, if we're not progressing, if we're not growing, if we're not able to invest here, we as companies oftentimes we go somewhere else. And then what happens to cities that aren't growing? Exactly. And I don't wanna be a part of that, right? And my companies, my developers are developers, they develop, that's how they make money. They're gonna go where they can. And 30 years ago, you would say, no, they're not. They're gonna do stuff here in Jefferson County. I have a local developer that just got back from Kansas City. And he's not a big guy. He's not a national firm. But he's going there because they want stuff to happen. So we can lose our local people just as easily as we can lose our national firms. That's just a comment that I have to make and a thing for us to keep in mind. And again, you don't have to go that far. You can cross 2 toll bridges and be in Indiana. So those are just some trends and things that I see. In summary, yes, there is a shortage. There's a shortage, there's a shortage, there is a shortage. We can prove it based on the permit numbers that we have. And we are seeing, so y'all get ready, we will see it more and more and more. We are seeing people move out of the urban area into the ex-urban areas for a million different reasons. They're willing to take smaller houses. It's just, it can be difficult to build those smaller houses in some areas. And how much everything costs is gonna impact what we're able to bring to your marketplace. And no matter what, because everybody says this, they're like, when the interest rate drops, well, when the interest rate drops, the prices of whatever's on the market, it's gonna go up because there's so many people waiting on the sideline. So we are got to try to get ahead of it and put some new stuff out in the marketplace before everything just not reasonably inflates and then doesn't hold over time, because we don't want that kind of problem either. So I hope that was uplifting. I hope you all feel better about everything in housing and you realize that everybody's got it all under control. I do appreciate you all listening to this. I am passionate about what I do and who I represent, and I know you are as well. So if there's ever anything that I can do, if we can meet with you, sit down with you, I would love to talk to you all. I appreciate you all considering housing as a topic that you need to talk about. And I hope that you will continue to talk about it, because if we don't start building stuff, that 209,000 number, it's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And then it becomes a bigger and bigger and harder to solve problem. So thank you for your time. I hope you didn't have to take minutes on that. Okay, there we go. But thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer or say pretty much whatever.
Any questions?
I have a question on that slide for the it showed the number of permits.
Yes.
Shown over time.
Uh-huh.
It looked like on the rebound, kind of going from 2000, what was it, 2005?
05 to 50, yeah, yes.
The single family looked like it rebounded relatively a lot more than.
Yes, let me answer that.
Okay.
So single family typically is still about half of what it was 05. Condos and townhomes, again, in the rural areas, we don't see as many condos and townhomes just generally. But in the meantime, during the recession and then again later, they changed lending laws when it comes to how we build condos and townhomes. It can be harder to get money to build those. And oftentimes, like if you were gonna do 6 units, the bank, your lending partner will say, well, you've got to have contracts on 3 of those units. Well, so if you're a buyer, I mean, you're not gonna be like, well, here, let me give you a $50,000 down payment on something that may not actually occur, right? So your options are, maybe I should look somewhere else to try to figure out what else is out there before I do that. So that caused a lot of hesitancy, plus there's pushback on those. You know, pre-08, and you could just drive down, what is that road, Shelbyville Road? I mean, there's a whole, townhome development right over there that people are very accustomed to, people see all the time. We don't, there's a lot of pushback now when we try to do those. I will tell you that we have developers who are doing those in certain areas of this county, and they are very popular. And if you're talking about something that's around $250,000, that's where they are. And they are selling like this. So it's just, we got away from all of it. And so when the public sees it, they're like, that just looks like an apartment, right? That's not what it is at all. So that's the shift.
Okay.
So when you say the average home is 2,100 square feet?
And that's what we see, yes. Like if you go to particularly if you go to a production builder, they're looking at probably plans that are around 2,100 square feet. Nationally.
What's stopping them from going smaller? Like, if you look at, post-war homes, it was 1,200 square feet, no basement. Those are starter homes. Why, is it just cost prohibitive for them to build smaller?
So if you look at a lot of your tract builders, you'll see, like, Arbor has a line that's smaller, like it's about 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. And DR Horton has a line, and I'm calling them lines because that's what they call them. A line that is smaller, and it's around that same square footage. With the cost of property and what I have to sell that lot for,
Okay.
I'm not really gonna put a 1,100 square foot house on an $80,000 lot. And
So that's where we would go, we need smaller
We need
lots.
smaller lots.
because of-
yes, we need smaller lots. Now, in Norton Commons, which is the high density development that, you know, has made more millionaires than the stock market or anything that anybody has ever done. You know, those are small lots, 50-foot, 40-foot wide lots, they're little. And I mean, those are, you know, those are $1 million homes
Mhm.
at Norton Commons, but that's not a, you know, typically,
That's not
that's not gonna be for everybody. But we need to be able to put those 1,100, 1,200 square foot homes on something, but if I have to have a standard, if you want a 60-foot wide lot, you're not gonna put that house on there. You're gonna be paying more for the lot itself than potentially the house, you know, and this is. My first house was $125,999, and I'll never forget that number. So we also produce Homerama, which if you've ever gone to Homerama, it's the dream home show. The lots, one of the lots this year was $250,000 in Jefferson County. So, you know, that's just to give you an idea. And I don't know what they are in Bullitt County. But you know, and so much of that, you all, is actually, it's the ground itself, the labor that goes into all the engineering, all the design work, plus all of the site construction, all of the water lines, all the sewer lines, you know, gas lines, all of that work that we have to pay for that goes into that lot. And so, like here in Jefferson County, I can talk about trees, Brian. You know, we have tree requirements in Jefferson County. All of that gets added into the lot cost. And before you know it, you know, you're looking at an $80,000 lot and you're like, well, that's a $700,000 house. You know, so it has, literally, when people talk about development, how they're like, why can't we see X, Y, and Z? And there's times when I'm like, we're lucky we're seeing anything. You know, it has to pencil because the majority of development in this country is private development. And private development cannot make it if it doesn't profit. And we don't actually typically profit until the very end of the development. So, you know, it's a long process for all of us. So, and that really, it's really hard in Jefferson County also, to get those small lots approved. But when people hear those are affordable homes, if you think your house is worth $300,000, you don't want even a $250,000 condo next to you, right? Now, you don't want the $500,000 house to you because you're afraid the PVA is gonna assess your property value higher and your taxes are gonna go up. But people always want the higher price, you know, next to them rather than anything that's lesser priced. But it's fixable, we just have to build more stuff.
There you go. All right, any other questions?
It is.
Anna, you have anything? Mullen County?
Yeah, I think our biggest obstacle for that, other than people not wanting high density developments, is the fact that there's not a ton of sewer infrastructure within the rural parts of Oldham County. So you can't do, and high density is really a general term because we had a subdivision get approved at Planning Commission last month that the opposition was calling high density, and it's 1 to 5 acre lots. And I feel like people who live in more metro areas probably wouldn't consider that high density. And then we have an open space subdivision that's gonna be at Planning Commission. That's gonna be like 5,500 square feet lots. I would call that high density, but you know, to each their own, I guess. So that's really our biggest barrier, and cost, I'm sure, is a huge thing in Oldham County for land.
Thank you, Anna. Brian, anything else?
On this topic or anything else?
No, this time.
Not on this topic.
Brian and I get the pleasure of talking all the time.
Yep.
The talking
There
or
we go.
yelling.
I'm not yelling. I mean, I come across as a yeller, but I really don't yell. I always tell people I don't have money in the argument. It's
You're
really
just-
well, but it's usually really
You're
mad.
passionate about your job, we can tell. And Shelby County, it's a mixture of people, right? You hit the nail on the head earlier about you've got a certain population, which in our case, it's about 5 people that are squeaky wheel, they get everybody excited about what's going on. And they wanna speak for the rest of the 50,000 people that live in the county. Getting elected officials,
Right.
I know we don't have any, we stepped out now, so.
Hey, talk now.
And I'm not gonna speak, I just know ours, they flip flop. They go back and forth, they can't.
Yeah.
One person gets in their ear, they change their mind. I sit in meetings and then, oh yeah, I like this, I can support this, we get to a meeting and it's flipped. No, and they vote against it, and it's like, what's going on here?
It's again, I say the most difficult thing to get approved is a housing development because, and local government is the hardest, it really is one of the hardest jobs ever because you can never escape the people that vote for you or that you're working with, right?
Yep.
Like if you're in Frankfurt, you can be like, well, that's a local thing. And then they push everything the stuff that people are like, that really impacts me today, traffic and, everything under the sun back on the local guys. And you have no way out. You've got no shelter, you've got no barrier, you've got no way out. You're forced to be in it. And if you don't go to your pancake breakfast and talk about it, they'll come to your house. So, and it's tough, for local officials, they're like required to do budgets. And then by law, KRS 100, they're required to okay developments, right? You're required to have planning and zoning, and so they're required to get involved in those things. And there's no quick exit. There's no way to say this is the best for the county, and I don't care if I get elected again, because, it's not that, when it's your job, it's not that easy to, so it's hard.
I will just say one thing, on the demographic information, because that was really interesting, because, this morning I was in a meeting and, the new LEDA CEO was in there talking about, Louisville's demographics and how we are different from like the cities that are growing, like Charlotte and Nashville, and in that 25 to 49 demographic, Nashville, and I forget the time period, but Nashville and Charlotte has grown about 12 to 15%. Louisville's decreased by 2%. And I mean, I see that with my kid, and she's getting ready to turn 24. None of her friends stayed in like Louisville or anything for college, and none of them have moved back after college. They've all gone to the cool cities, Denver, Nashville, Chicago, and things like that. And so, we are missing tools, housing, and because of the shortages like that, then we miss out on the job opportunities. We miss out on keeping, or attracting some of that demographic that has the money to spend to help us bring other things. And so that was interesting. Remember, you had that in there.
And that is a shift. And this is an anecdote. So I'm from Southeast Kentucky, and they always make fun of us from Appalachia. They're like, you can't do anything but ever go back, right? You don't know how to do anything but go back to East Kentucky. And I said that Louisville, this area has the shortest apron strings ever. Because my generation, so this is truly a shift between your daughter and us. So my generation, the majority of the people that my husband went to high school with, because I'm here for a guy of all things, they all came back. And now, I mean, it truly is a generational trend. They're leaving and they're not coming back. And if we know it's there because there's so much community in this area. Like if you're from Shelbyville, your goal is people love Shelby County. And I would say the same thing for like Oldham County, and we know it in Louisville because I always say, if you lose them from Jefferson County and they go to Shelby County, they're not coming back here. They're gonna raise their kids in Shelby County, and those kids are gonna move back to Shelby County. It used to be that way, and we've lost it. So we know we've had it. We know the culture is there in the drive. We just have to make the changes to get it back. Because typically in that shift that I'm talking about, nationally, that is true. When people are leaving those urban areas, they're typically going right around them, right? But if we don't do some things to keep those people here and close to us, they really are gonna leave us and go to those big cities. And I mean, I tell people all the time, a city, what are we, 18th in the country still because of merger?
20 somewhere. Yeah.
A city with that many single family starts is a town. Like I'm from Laurel County, and I would say that we kind of got the same thing going on, percentage wise, if you look at the population. So, if we don't generate, if we don't allow the energy to come in here, it goes somewhere else. And energy is money. So, but it is true. We always had it forever. People would always come back to Louisville. And we're losing that a little bit, and once we lose them, once you have kids somewhere else and you get them in school, you don't come back. So, I mean, that's why I can't convince my husband to go back to a farm in Laurel County. It's like, our kids are in school.
There you go.
Presentation is great. The cultural problem that you describe is here.
Mhm.
I'm from Henry County,
Yes,
but I went to Shelby County recently for a grand opening for a display of a factory that is ready to be occupied. So everybody's there talking about how great Shelby County is, which it is. But one of the things that you're presenting that causes all of this to be a problem is one of these state representatives gets up and says how desirable this county is. In fact, there's a farm close by here that is selling for $100,000 an acre.
mhm.
So if it's selling for $100,000 an acre, how do you put housing on it?
You can't.
And these people, you can't build these factories and so on if you don't have people. I'm told in Shelby County, they need like 1,000 workers this year to fill jobs and about 1,000 a year for the next several years. So we're an adjoining county and would like to provide some of that, but how do we get housing ourselves to? I mean, you're just pointing out the
We
cultural.
set up a meeting. Talk to her. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about a cultural problem here, though, that's self-defeating.
I think it's
You promoted,
overcome.
hey, we're so desirable, paying $100,000 an acre for our land, but how do you get workers to come in and work in your factories?
Well, I would say this, cause I do believe it is overcome. I do believe, you know, if Jefferson County is gonna be so hard. If I were Spencer, nobody here's from Spencer County, right? If I were Spencer County, and I think they are trying, I think they're trying to do some good things to let things happen in Spencer
Mhm.
County. I would say, you know, and they, of course, you got a culture there too, right? You got the local guy who builds houses and the track guy that wants to come in. That's a whole other dynamic. Those counties that are surrounding, because that's your opportunity, right? The future for you is that Shelby County is growing. To them, you are an ex-urban county. The first thing I would do would be to reach out to entities like ours and come talk to us. Because I've got guys who are looking at property, their job is to look at property. There is a guy who works for Fisher Homes, and he sits in his office and looks at a computer all day at Logic and any GIS map he can to figure out what tracks would work and where the infrastructure is, the sewer, and what he can make happen. So, and we are happy to meet with anybody, unless you're in Indiana, about, you know, here's what we've got. Who do we need to work with and can we work together? I mean, we do. We try to go meet with Ryan. I only try to bother Ryan Lippy one time, maybe every other year, about, you know, what's happening and what's changing and how can we make things happen?
I think it's also an investment from your local communities. Because Shelby County is attractive because they have the same amenities that you can, and you know, of course, that wasn't the case, but they started years ago with those community attractions.
And they had some people that Shelby County, from what I can see, you keep apologizing for your 50. You don't need to do that. So,
I'm sorry about it. I just,
Okay.
there's things, I think they're my limitations. That's what I'm apologizing
but
for.
Shelby County had a lot of people with vision years ago. Spencer County did.
Yes.
So in 1970, when everybody ran out of Jefferson County, they went to Bullitt and they went to Jefferson and to Spencer.
Mhm.
And, but Shelby County had people that had a vision. And that's been to their advantage.
That's the same thing that happened. So if back in the 70s and 80s, Louisville, Nashville, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati, we were all about the same. And this is true for any government, right? So at that point in time, we were all about the same. And those visionaries and Nashville, and look at Indy. Indy is a convention city that held a Super Bowl, you know, right? Those were people who said, we're going to invest as local government, we're gonna invest in these things, truly invest in them and change our focus, rules, trajectory to allow these things to happen. So those cities did it for economic development, right? Nashville had music, that was an easy thing. We have bourbon, I still think we've never capitalized on that enough to allow truly the tourism to go. But they had that vision to make that happen. And no one ever does it for housing. Because housing is always, it's the afterthought, it's the hardest thing to get approved. And once you have your housing culture, it's very hard to be a visionary in it as a local elected official especially, and overcome what has always been. And you have to remember too, in the state of Kentucky, we have 120 counties. I would say fewer or maybe about half by this point in time truly have planning and zoning. Not even that.
No way.
So it's hard to be visionary on something that we don't even take up in our local court meetings, right? So, but there's tons of opportunity there. You know what's coming there and you know what the need is. So, I mean, the first thing I would do is go back and say, all right, we have this opportunity. Here's where the sewer is. Here's where, and here's where you can hook up. Here's where the water is. Here's where all that infrastructure that for really high density development you have to have. I don't know what's your requirement for septic? Like, do you have 1 acre lots or do you do 5 or do you do?
We're half acre for. if
So
you're
it
on-
has to be a minimum 1 to 5,
Oh, there you go.
but
So,
that's limited too, so.
right.
So they have to approve it though, so if you can get your lateral lines on an acre, you're allowed, but they kind of recommend 2, really, but.
So let's just
And
be
this
safe
is where
and say
your
your 2
future
acre lots.
land
Yeah.
use map really comes into play, especially around your cities.
But our R1's a half acre, right?
Yeah.
So R1's a half acre, but still you have to get approval for
Yeah.
that. And it's hard to get a septic that works on half acre.
They do direct discharge now, but that jacks up the price of your lot, so.
Well, and then the public starts complaining about that. So, I'm not saying it's bad, we're all for it in Oldham County. So, but that is an opportunity, because you know what they've done. Because they have a significant amount of pushback in Shelby County when it comes to housing. I mean, I could list 3 developers that are like, I'm not going there again. So, but you have the opportunity, I got a bunch of people in a room the first Wednesday of every month that are looking for places to go. And again, when they don't find it welcoming here, it is really easy to go across the river. And granted, they don't like apartments over there either, but they love single family and their infrastructure's already in.
Do you have any judge's phone number?
No, I'd love to come meet your judge.
It's right there.
So, and I will say this, part of it for our guys, there's gonna be the sub pool, can we get subcontractors to go there? And it's gonna be perception. Like, if we get the perception, if one guy, cause there's, the only community that talks more than home builders and developers are hairdressers. So, if one guy gets the message that, don't go up there, they'll be hesitant. But if they get the message that it's welcoming and go talk to those people, they wanna see what, they've got stuff and they wanna talk to you, they will be there. I talk about your land use codes and your subdivision regulations. The guys will, and I say guys, 90% of the people in the development industry are in. They will be coming to talk to you. You just give me your card, your phone number, and I can share it with a whole lot of people that are already looking, if they haven't been to you already. And maybe they're just not aware because they don't know what access you have for sewer and water and whatever.
I'll talk to you guys.
Cause again, if we're not developing and making money, we're not working. And we all wanna be working.
Well, Juba, we've got to continue on with this agenda so we can finish up for the next meeting that starts here.
I know, I'm
But
sorry.
I want to know, it's been great conversation.
It's gonna be an hour.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the conversation and the information you provided. And you already have.
I'm gonna take the judge out, yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
You're more welcome to stay. You don't have to go.
Okay. Perfect. It's good to see you too. See you.
I will, share, Hugo's presentation, that's okay with her. Somebody approach. I'll share that, post meeting, and her contact information as well, in case anybody else wants to get in touch, so.
All right.
No.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, real quick, I know we have KIPDA updates, so KIPDA staff.
Yeah, we can keep this really brief. Yeah, on my end, Justin Carter, myself have been doing, system visits, for water and wastewater infrastructure. My big thing for the next couple months is working on the, water and wastewater management plan. That draft we're gonna be doing June, for our region, so I'm just kind of making a list of priority projects, seeing where we're at with water and sewer infrastructure. That's about it for me. I don't know if anybody else has
Okay,
anything.
anybody else?
Land and water and recreational trails are open, so if you have any park needs or trail needs, let us know. Me or Dustin, and we'll get those in for you. Community development block grants are also open. That's for any community facilities or public infrastructure, economic development. I'm just looking at you. We got projects.
Yes, one.
And I'll say too, we are looking at the funding landscape for disaster recovery, given all the storms recently, and we'll share that information with you all as we have it.
Okay,
Did you all get a bunch of damage in Henry? Okay.
For transportation, I'll just cut it down to the stuff about TARC, because in March at the TPC, we had a presentation from TARC Director Ozzie Gibson about their challenges that they're ongoing. They've already done 2 rounds of service cut that have reduced the service hours by 25% since 2024. And they have a draft enhanced network that would do an additional 12% service cut. But that would be sustainable till 2030 and provide service to all the JCPS magnet schools. TARC projects a budget of $112 million next year with 500,000 boardings a month. 23 million of that is for TARC 3, their paratransit service, which has 31,000 scheduled trips per month. And TARC is also studying a downtown transit center, and that would allow riders to be able to transfer between multiple buses easier.
all right, thank you. Anybody else? All right. Appreciate the updates there. County quarterly updates, and we'll start with Judge Bates.
Yes, sir.
Henry County.
Some of the things she was talking about, we've been discussing some of that with our planning and zoning regs. Thinking that we need to update some of those things and, I think the meeting Wednesday night will probably be some of this stuff will be talked about. I feel like if, you know, our planning and zoning was put in early 90s and we're living in a different day now. It has changed and, but everything she says is true. Whatever development you want to bring in, there's going to be that same bunch. It's going to be there fussing. They don't want to change anything. They thought it was fine for them to come years ago
Yeah.
and change our community, but they don't want to change it now. But so you just got to deal with that, and it makes it hard on planning and zoning because the board has to sit there and listen to all that and then make a motion or to approve or deny, and they're gonna make some of their friends mad, you know, but that's either way. And so it's hard on those guys and gals, but as far as I think Henry County is really in the right place for some growth. But we'll still be an ag community if we grow too. I mean, there's a balance.
Yeah, yep. Is that it?
Yes.
All right. Anna, you want to do Oldham County?
Yes, we are updating our comprehensive plan. We're in the process of that. So we have had some focus group meetings and a steering committee meeting. And next month on May 5th, we start our stakeholder meetings. So on May 5th, it should be in our newly the first event in our fiscal court reception center. So it's like what used to be the Methodist church right next to our fiscal court building. So, and then we have subsequent meetings on May 6th, 8th, 13th, and 15th across our county. So we're really excited to be able to do this update to our comprehensive plan, and we'll be updating our future land use map as a part of that. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Anna. Brian? Metro?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. So the moratorium that the state legislature imposed on us last year expires next week. Shop that to bid, ready to roll. On making some land development code changes. I've got some things lined up and ready to go to Metro Council. Or Planning Commission and then Metro Council once that does expire. So we're kind of keeping our head down, waiting to see what happened this year. They tried to extend the moratorium 2 years this year, but that did not pass. So we were walking on eggshells there for a little bit. Yeah, just looking forward to making some of the changes that we really want to make in terms of lot sizes and density and things like that in order to help promote more housing. And then, the only other thing, I'll throw out, the APA annual conference, that's gonna be August 21st and 22nd in Lexington, so put that on the calendars. More information about that conference will be available next week.
All right, thank you, Brian. Last county be Shelby, really don't have much to report. I think the county's looking at putting some money in the budget to hire a consultant to come in and do a whole new comprehensive plan for the county.
When was your last one done? Just,
In 18. So, but the conversation, you know, after that one, then it was a conversation of 3-acre lots. It originally was 2-acre lots. And then there was a magistrate and a judge, and then they compromised and said, oh, 3-acre, and now we've had some 3-acre. We had somebody try to rezone some property that would actually, that had already been approved with 58 lots, 5 acres and larger. They came in and said, well, we would like to rezone about 100 acres to allow us to an RE zone, which is a 1-acre lot on 70. But I will do some binding elements, and I won't go any smaller than a 3-acre lot, and I won't have any more lots than 58 that have already been approved for. And one of the lots will be an 85-acre tract that will be saved as a farm.
so your subdivisions have to be 1 acre or more
In certain zones.
in the ag area.
There's different zones. Ag is 5 acres.
What's your smallest lot size?
5,000 square feet,
Okay,
and that's in an R4 zone.
okay.
Your RE zone is your residential estates zone, which allows you then to do a 1-acre lot on 70. But there's not any land out there zoned, so you'd have to ask for a zone change. And so that's what he did, and he had conditions, and he was gonna preserve an 85-acre tract as a farm. And they turned it down. The zone change got overturned by the court because it didn't agree with the comprehensive plan. But our comprehensive plan talks about preserving farmland and keeping open space and things. So didn't make any sense. Still same number of lots, it just whatever. So they overturned the planning commission, so nobody challenged it. So he's going back and gonna develop 58 lots on 200 and some acres. And have 5 acres up to maybe a 15, but everything would be that, and that's how it.
No 85-acre farm.
No 85-acre farms being preserved or anything, it'd be just large state lots that nobody will farm. It might have a very expensive pet of a retired thoroughbred or a saddlebred or something on there, but they're not gonna do any true farming. But that's what we deal with now. Community, but the city of Shelbyville's also been talking about putting money in the budget to do their own comp plan. So they're following suit with Simpsonville. They're like, hey, we need to think about ourselves and how do we want to grow as a city? The county wants to see how they want to do it as a county, and then so that's all ongoing. So I'll know more come July 1, whether or not they got money and what we do there. That's all I have from Shelby County. KIPDA announcements.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of covered the announcements and the updates. I don't know, Nick, do you have anything else?
All right, at this point, we got we have to open it up for a public comment period. But this time, if there's anybody here from the public that would like to address the council, this is your opportunity. Seeing nobody step forward, or online come forward, we'll close the public comment period and we'll move on. Our next meeting will be next quarter.
Yes. Next week.
And you'll get that information and an invite from Ryan, and look for that in the coming months. But our next item on the agenda is just a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all.